Hello and welcome to Unstoppable. I am your host, Kerwin, and today we talk all things plants and nutrition with Simon Hill. Now, this young man, oh my God, Plant Proof Simon. He is actually the founder of multiple businesses, including Your Tea, Mr. Bean Body Care, and Plant Proof, as well as the Organic Village Food. He has his own incredibly popular podcast called Plant Proof Podcast, and he's actually one of Chris Hemsworth's special experts on his health and fitness app, Center. And in this episode, we talk to Simon about his journey as a young man working as a physiotherapist, setting up a side hustle, 109 Jerry, which was a telecommunications service that was similar to Ask Jeeves. And if you remember Ask Jeeves, and you've been around a long time. And he actually learned how to make more money in his side hustle, so he was able to actually leave his job as his physiotherapist and embark on a career as an incredible entrepreneur. He tells us his story about how he modeled all of his brands around the same strategies and how he started his most recent passion project, Plant Proof. He talks about his work-life balance in his 20s and the guilt he felt from his friends and families by focusing on his business. This guy's got an incredible mindset with enormous resilience, and we discuss how he developed that, as well as parenting and steering kids in the right direction when it comes to healthy choices for food, and also about finding purpose and teaching sustainable healthy eating. For those of you vegetarians, vegans, and just people who want to be a lot more healthy in general, this one's for you. Simon Hill, listen up. This episode is brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for businesses. If you have ever wanted to grow your business faster than what you can right now, if you need to make more revenue, if you need more leads, if you need more clients, if you need to know how to plan your business in a strategic way in order to hit big goals, if you need to learn how to scale your business and grow your team and your business so that you have more freedom, then this program is for you. Imagine 3 days immersed with me where we cover all aspects of business, but we do it from an immersive but also an execution standpoint. We execute every step of the way. And we're looking at 5 key areas. We're looking at your psychology. We're looking at your marketing, your sales, your leadership, and we're looking at your planning and how we integrate these 5 key areas to grow your business and your brand quickly. So if you'd like to find out more information, kerwinray.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute honor and a real pleasure to welcome into the Unstoppable Studios. We have Simon Hill. Simon, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, man. I just had a little tour of your office here, and the gym especially caught my eye. Is that where you're pumping a bit of iron?
Mate, well, pumping a bit of meat, because most of what I do is body weight now, if not everything I do is body weight, just because, you get to a stage of life. I think you're quite young. You're still, what?
32.
32, okay, so... Yeah, I've got to the stage of life now where I'm not picking things up. I'm just flat out picking myself up. So the more I practice picking me up, the easier life is. But I'm glad you liked it, mate. So listen, you have quite an interesting story. You've been a little bit covert as an entrepreneur for the last 10 years. Busy undercover, building a series of businesses, and you're only now coming into the light.
Yeah, I guess, and I mean, I'm coming into the light, I guess, from another angle in terms of some other things I'm doing personally, health and well-being. But from a business perspective, I guess I flew under the radar a little bit, and I was never one to sort of want to get involved in interviews and things when I was younger. Yeah. And I think that was more because I was so focused on what I was doing, firstly. But secondly, I was having all these successes, and to be honest, at that stage of my life, without having been able to sort of step back and reflect on what I was doing, I was really poor at being able to explain to anyone else.
Yeah, right.
What were my sort of secrets, as everyone would sort of ask me back then. So I think having now being a bit older and being able to look back on some of the things I've done, I can sort of appreciate, I guess, how I was piecing things together.
So for people who don't know your story, why don't you give us like the 30-second nutshell of your claim to fame and how you've done what you've done. And we'll talk about how you've done what you've done, but more from the positioning of people who don't know who you are. Like, what are the businesses that you've built?
Sure. So I actually finished university as a physiotherapist and started working with AFL players down in Melbourne. So I grew up in Melbourne. Whilst I was working as a physio, I remember my salary then was $37,500. Oh. So this was in 2008. I finished. Wow. And I had I had great marks, but I was able to build some great connections and working with the AFL players. I got positioned in like a private practice, which really they don't take new grads. So I was very lucky. So I took this job, even though the salary was very low. And for me, it was more about just getting into the system and learning from some more senior people. At the time, I had been making more money selling various things on eBay through university. So I went from sort of hustling on eBay and, importing things from China like poker chip sets and whatnot, riding the poker sort of wave. And making...
You play poker?
Yeah. So I was playing a lot of poker. I realized that I was playing the home game scene was starting to pick up. I started importing in poker chip sets, managed to be listed very highly on eBay, was working the reviews and stuff. This was like before a lot of marketplace. eBay was like the place to sell then. So then coming out of uni and working and realizing that it was a tough slog, and it was very different to, the sort of money that I was making while I was a physiotherapy student, led me to start thinking about just business and what I wanted to do with life. And it wasn't so much focused on the money, but more not bogging myself down in a career that wasn't going to allow me freedom to work out who I was, to travel, things like that. So first opportunity I had to do something was, really by luck. I met a mutual friend. A mutual friend introduced me to someone who ended up becoming my business partner. And at the time, SMS, like telecommunications, sort of texting services had really started to pick up. This is 2009, 10. So I don't think Instagram was even around then. And the way that people were using phones was very different. So we'd set up a telecommunication service. So it's not a subscription service, not one of those scam services. Sort of clear that up. It was.
I think we just had an Australian extradited to the US over
this.
Yeah, right.
So this was more. You only pay when you play. There's no subscription. You could text in any question. You get an answer back. Our guarantee was you get an answer back in 60 seconds.
What was the name of this brand?
So this was called 109 Jerry, right?
109 Jerry.
Yeah, we ended up selling it, which I can go into. But the entire premise was that you get a question back really quickly from this really smart, clever guy, Jerry. He can answer whatever question you want.
Right.
And I mean,
so is it like a handset play on Ask Jeeves?
Kind of, yes. So
like
a lot
a
of people,
mobile search.
yeah, like a mobile one, right?
Yep.
And what I quickly realized was that it was predominantly sort of people aged 16 to 25 using it.
Yep.
So between over a 2-year period, we'd set up this service. We didn't even really know what we were doing. We were dealing with like Telstra, Optus, SMS aggregators. I'd done a physiotherapy course. I had no idea about business, but through high school, I was very good at numbers.
Yep.
And I understood. I just understood the basics of numbers from a common sense point of view. What we needed, what overheads we could have in order to have a good net profit. So we set up this business, and we used contract operators around the world to receive messages from our platform and answer. So we would have...
And that was just someone sitting in a call center somewhere with access to the internet.
Yeah, we used everyone from Philippines, locals, UK, Ireland, all around the world. And that allowed us to have a 24-hour trading.
Right.
People in different time zones. So we found that was easier than trying to get Australians to work overnight.
Yep. Or trying to get Australians to work in general.
Yeah.
Oh, don't go there. He didn't do that, did he?
So we quickly realised who our sort of target market was, and I'm not sure if you remember in like the 70s and 80s there was slap bands which you'd slap on your wrist and they'd like curl.
Of course, I remember.
So,
of course, I was born in 74, son.
Okay, so we thought, okay, there's concerts, there's events, there's a lot of places where our target market sort of aggregate in big groups.
Yep.
And between over an 18-month period, we ordered and had 2.5 million slap bands on the wrists of Australians, right? So
you brought them back.
We brought those things back, and after we did that, like probably 18 months later, I saw like KKK had slap bands, and a few other stores had slap bands, like Sports Girl and things like that. They
so
came back.
What year was this? You brought them back?
So this was in 2010.
Yeah, right. The revival.
And that marketing for us was just huge. We went from nothing to doing 400,000 messages in a month, which was at that time, $1.6 million in overall total revenue.
And then you were remarketing the slap bands to this market, is that right?
No, so what we were doing was the slap band had the terms and conditions and what the service was about and all the information, but on the front looked really good, so kids would keep wearing them.
Right.
You walk into
so the slap band was the marketing medium.
You walk into a university on orientation week and every kid would be wearing one.
Right.
That was our marketing tool. And then
how did they get it in their hands?
We'd send out promotional stuff. So we'd use promotional
services
on campus.
Handing out slap bands. Yep. 1-800
sponsor events.
109 Ask Jerry on the back.
We would sponsor events.
Gotcha.
We would do whatever we could we knew that on average people were texting in 10 to 15 times. So we understood what we could invest in terms of getting these wristbands out there.
And every SMS was worth roughly how much?
To us, net profit about $1.50, yeah.
And the average was about $6.
Yeah.
$6 a subscription.
So we were, at pretty quickly, I was still doing this while I was working as a physio.
Right.
And pretty quickly, I was a 50% shareholder in this business. And whilst we weren't stripping money out, pretty quickly, 50% of the net profit per month was exceeding what I was making in a year as a physio. So I had a decision. Do I want to? I had a lot of passion.
Do I really enjoy massaging men, sweaty men after AFL games? Or do I want to make money as an entrepreneur? Look, it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, well, when you put it that way, it makes sense. Where which route I went, but I did kind of feel guilty because I'd done this 4-year course.
Yeah, of course.
Right, that I'd really been very determined at doing well.
I think it's called qualification obligation.
Yeah, I felt very guilty. I had this guilt. I was like, am I doing something wrong here?
Yeah.
Is it wrong by, are people going to look at me and frown upon me, or, should I be reconsidering what I'm doing here? And then, but I just thought, you know what, that degree's there. I'll come back to that one day if I have to, and I left physiotherapy. We built that business, considerably. I moved to the UK for 9 months in Manchester. This was when I was like 23, 24. So I moved over there, basically set up the same model, exactly the same thing. Ireland, Netherlands, set that up. And then we sold that to a company which had reverse listed on the ASX here called Future Capital.
Yep.
Future Capital, yeah, I think that's
that was they're a private equity come public?
Dom Carosa.
Oh, I know Dom. Yeah. Okay, right.
So we ended up selling that business to Dom.
Yep.
And Dom had been doing a lot of acquisitions in the space.
Yep.
So we were well aware of each other and what was going on. So it was kind of inevitable. He was listening and wanted to expand in telecommunications sort of media. We wanted to get out and I wanted to explore other things. So that worked well. Around that time, probably just before that, I had been in Bali. One of the great things about that business was the
freedom,
ability to work wherever I wanted to.
Yep, nice.
And it was just so satisfying. And I look back now and really appreciate that I was able to do that because I traveled the whole world. But I had come back from Bali and I'd been sick. You asked for a quick snapshot, but this is pretty long.
Mate, we've gone way past the fucking elevator speech. We're actually now in the trenches. It's all good. Let it roll. Let it roll.
I came back and I was feeling quite sick in the stomach. So I had like a bit of Bali belly at the end of the trip. And when I came back, my digestion hadn't really returned to normal. And this girl I knew had always been interested in Chinese medicine and was cooking up herbs in the kitchen at lunch, and they'd stink out the whole office. Oh,
so you were having the boiled herbs, the special juice?
She was having those at that stage.
Right.
And I was like, this is some weird stuff.
It is. Look, I've used Chinese medicine for a number of different things over a number of years, and it is the most disgusting route, but highly effective.
Very effective. So she was.
I think actually it's the pain of the ingestion that makes you take your focus off whatever your issues are, and you feel good.
Probably.
As long as I've finished, I feel better. Carry on, mate.
So she was encouraging me to, instead of just going and seeing like a Western doctor and getting some antibiotics, go and see the Chinese doctor and have him, assess me and see if he can fix this digestion issue. So I went in there and this guy was like, this is in South Yarra in Melbourne, and it's like this sort of quack Chinese doctor in this house that looks like it's kind of half falling down. I won't name him because that sounds pretty mean, but walked in there and it was like it was very different to walking into a Western doctor.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm not sure if this is going to work.
Disclaimer, not all Chinese medicine doctors do business this way.
Yeah. This is an exception.
This is.
Anyway, I went in, and the first thing I noticed was as soon as I walked in, he had all of these herbs and spices behind the sort of reception desk that had labels on them. So they were labeled as skin, digestion, liver tonic or whatever it was, right? And there was heaps of them. And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. Went in, saw him. He gave me wrote down like a little bit of a script for the receptionist to give me some herbs. Receptionist starts scooping things out of all these containers. It was like, okay, here you go. This is what you need to boil this up 3 times a day for the next 7 days. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. Went and did it. Anyway, I think I really did feel better, but whether that was just the 7 days more of being home or placebo, who knows? But I did feel great, and all the herbs and spices behind the counter kind of stuck in my mind. And at this time was just when Instagram had started. So Instagram had just started, and I'd having done with my previous business and had a real interest in sort of marketing. I'd started to look at this platform, and there was no brands on this platform yet. So like, I think the biggest sort of following of anyone I came across was like 1,000 or 2,000 people. It was very, very early. And I sat down with this girl and said, look, I think we could make Chinese medicine a little sexier. It's it doesn't need to be this weird sort of backyard type of experience. We could dress it up, and we could make it a lot more simple and convenient for the modern world. Because if this stuff does work, it's more about just bridging the gap and having something that in the modern world people see as effective but sophisticated, elegant, So we decided we would build a brand around Chinese medicine, but bridging that gap, making it very convenient in the modern world to actually access it and consume it, something that wasn't going to stink out the whole office, but was still highly effective. So we went and met with a couple of different traditional Chinese medicine practitioners and spoke about how we could do this. And it really came down to containing all of those herbs into basically what a tea bag is. And from there, I bought the domain yourtea.com, which I think someone had it, but I paid like $5,000 and got it, which I thought, okay, that's a pretty clear name for the business. And we went down to a Chinese market in Melbourne because I think one of the themes that we might talk about is all of these businesses I've started very lean and done a lot of test and learn.
Yeah, right.
And
do you mind if we do just like a quick recap? So you started the SMS business.
Yep.
You did really well. You built that over a period of a couple of years. You expanded that internationally, and you sold out to Carosa. You then came back. You started the Your Tea network. You built that up over what period of time?
I've sold all my shares out sort of 3 months ago, so it still exists today. That
okay.
Yep.
But it's still quite a successful,
healthy
brand.
Yeah.
And then from there, you pivoted into what was the next brand?
So from there, I set up a business with a business partner of mine now, and we've done, another 9 or 10 brands that have just repeated that model.
Right.
Part of the model is setting up 3PL distribution around the world.
Yep.
Using it.
For those people who don't know what 3PL distribution is, why don't you explain that briefly?
Third-party logistics.
Yep.
So we tap into warehouses, pick and pack services offshore where they're set up. They have the lease, but we just pay for pallet space, and we pay for them to receive our orders and ship them out.
Yeah, right. And so you've done the tea. What other products have you done in that space?
We've done Bean Body, a whole heap of different supplement stuff.
Right.
A lot of the newer stuff now that we're building has been purpose-built for China.
Right.
So some of our products are in like Myer and David Jones, like Bean Body, which is a cosmetic brand. It's in Priceline. But most of our new stuff from like the last 2 years is literally purpose built for the Chinese market.
So in terms of the scale that you built these businesses to, if you don't mind me asking, like what sort of revenues did you grow these businesses to?
Your Tea back in 2010 was doing, within its first 6 months, was doing around 1.5 million Aussie in revenue. We had some exceptional days in that first year. I remember I woke up one morning and we'd done overnight, just out of France, we'd been featured on TV and we did 330,000 euros in one day.
Nice.
Just selling tea, or Chinese medicine in the form of tea.
Yep.
And then, we built that business to doing consistent sort of $2-3 million revenues a month.
Nice. And that's and being a business that has product, were you having to run it quite lean because the margins were quite tight?
Our margins were really healthy.
Yeah,
and that's because we didn't price it as tea.
Right.
We priced it as a therapeutic, more of like a premium supplement offering, not tea. If we had gone out and priced it against your Lipton and your Dilmar and stuff, we would have made no money.
Yep. But it was a specialist, unique.
People were paying $40 a box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I've got to say, it's very unusual to have someone at 32 who's built as many, 9 brands or something you built about now?
Yeah, 9 that we are still existing. There's been sort of 2 or 3 that we would have tried and turned off as well. But yeah.
And to build it up, like most people can't focus on one thing, let alone focusing on multiple things. One of the things I often tell people when they come and say, look, I've got all these different businesses. What do? I say, fucking get rid of everything. Focus on one. Is that part of your strategy? It just looks like you've got multiple things going on, but you're actually working on one thing?
I guess the model of all of these brands is very, very similar. So I use the same marketing strategies, pretty much the same principles apply, the same distribution through our 3PL networks. We've got, once we had one brand set up and had distributor contacts around the world, had 3PL contacts around the world, had a marketing team that was expanding and had capacity to add another brand. But it's a key thing. We don't add another brand if we are under-resourced. We've only ever added additional brands while thinking about how are we going to have the resources to manage this, because like you said, you spread yourself too thin and you sort of, on every brand you're doing a little bit rather than one brand doing a lot.
Yep. So you've built all these businesses. You seem to be finding a little bit of a pace now, but you're now coming out into the light. You now decided to come above the radar. So what's changed?
Well, I think in the last year or so, a lot of my personal brand and stuff has shifted to what I'm doing now, which is completely out of this product-based business stuff, and it's around plantproof.com, which is a website that I set up about plant-based nutrition. So I, along this course, became very passionate about plant-based nutrition.
So you're vegan?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
And I'd gone.
You're holding a bit of mass for a vegan.
Yeah, well, I mean that's sort of part of what plantproof.com is about, and it's breaking down some of the stigma associated myths, or some of the stereotypical views.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you hate plants?
Why do I hate plants?
Because I love this conversation because there's so much data to prove that plants actually have levels of emotional response. They have feeling response, and when a plant's about to get picked, they feel it. I don't have an issue with it, but I just find it an interesting concept to float when I do speak to my vegan and vegetarian friends.
Yeah, I know that gets floated around, but I think common sense prevails. We would probably think animals are emotionally more intelligent. We would assume. We would assume. Until proven otherwise. So with Plant Proof, so what's the goal now? So I'm building out the content and stuff online. Started the community in January last year. Right. So built that out. That's growing fairly quickly, and writing a book with Penguin, the Penguin book publishers. At the moment, as I'm about to finish my master's in nutrition. Yep. So that book will come out 2020, which is a non-for-profit book. So this is passion stuff. Right. I've made more than enough money so far with the business stuff I've done, and now I'm sort of exploring some other areas of my life which I'm finding fulfilling. Yeah, right. And so where to from here? What does that look like? Is this going to be like a big community initiative? Yeah, hopefully. So what I've done with the book is the community will choose where the profits are donated to, what organisations. There's multiple pillars that we'll try and cover, whether it's world hunger or sustainability, whatever it is.
Yep.
I've been working with Chris Hemsworth on his new health and fitness app. Centre. So he asked me to get involved and do the plant-based recipes and nutrition within the app.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a focus. There's a lot of content to build out there. Continuing to build out the app.
Yep.
And just really excited just to see where it goes. I don't really I'm not approaching it as a business as such, which is nice for a change.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume you've been in business now over 10 years or about 10 years?
Yeah, I'm 32, so yeah. 22.
About 10 years. I can't assume that it's all been smooth sailing. There's got to be some challenges that have popped up along the way. What's one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome? Have you ever failed spectacularly?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I still have failures all the time now. But I think early on I learned that those are good and you can look at them in two lights and you can let them get you down, or you can work out why you failed and learn from that, which, you know, a lot of people talk about, but there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
I think work-life balance has probably been, you know, through my 20s. I think if a lot of people around me would, and used to often say to me, like, do you think you work too much? Are you taking this stuff too seriously? And honestly, I looked at it as I was enjoying it so much, and what I was doing through my 20s, and the long hours, they weren't dragging me down, they were enriching me. I was learning about myself. Yeah. I was learning about myself at the same time. So for me, I had guilt though. I was like, do I need to take a day off here? Do I need to take a day off there? And I started just to really, you know, avoid listening to those people that were telling me that I needed to pull it right back and just really get to know myself and work out, well, what is enriching my life? And, you know, I think along the way, although a lot of the stuff I was doing was business, it was definitely personal growth. In terms of real failures, I mean, I've had stock come over from China before that hasn't been properly quality controlled. Turns up multiple containers, damaged stock. Person in China not accepting that they're liable. You've got distributors waiting for stock, so you're letting people down. You know, that sort of stuff.
So how do you deal with that kind of stuff? Because that sounds like a pretty decent kind of situation to get yourself put into.
I think the first thing that I always do in that situation is any key stakeholder, distributor or store, is organise meetings or phone calls and try and work out a solution where they're happy. Because ultimately those relationships are so important, and you want to be growing them. You don't want them to be shrinking. You don't want them to be looking to other brands to supply. So that's, no matter how bad something is, it's trying to maintain that relationship.
Yeah, right.
And then, you know, working with your suppliers to resolve the issue, but then ultimately learning and getting better quality control in place because you were growing too fast and you were ordering too much stock and putting too much pressure on the Chinese supplier. They were cutting corners, but you didn't have the quality control in place to pick up the error.
Yeah, right. Have you ever experienced any personal tragedy?
Like death?
Death?
Yeah.
Addiction? Trauma?
Haven't had any addictions to sort of drugs and alcohol or anything like that. People probably say I was addicted to my work. Bit of
a workaholic?
Yeah, workaholic, which, you know, I think it stems from my dad. My dad has a very strong work ethic. But yeah, I've had personal tragedy and deaths in the family and things like that.
And so how do you recover from tragedy? Like because it seems to me like you've got a very strong psychology. It seems you've got a very good handle on yourself. You really know who you are. And one of the things I've observed in high performers, one of the things that makes them great is they have a very high level of self-awareness. And so they know when they're down the things that they need to do in order to pick themselves up. And whether it be, you know, a container not arriving or a death in the family or dealing with, you know, personal adversity that might be either recurrence in the form of, you know, compulsive behaviours or around addiction, or, you know, that are uncompulsive in terms of, you know, just having problems with relationships. I'm curious to know from you, like, what is your go-to when the shit is hitting the fan in any area of your life? Like, what is the first thing you think about? What is the first thing you do that helps you right side the ship and get yourself back on track?
I think I subconsciously try and rationalize the situation and also look to the positives.
You balance it out.
I've got to always look to the positives.
Yeah.
If I'm ever sitting in thought and just thinking about negatives, I quickly change that. And I think going back to what you just said then, I think probably when I do look back and what I couldn't explain to people at the start about why I was able to have, multiple successes quite early was a certain amount of resilience.
Yeah.
And
where did that develop? Like, were you an athlete at school, or?
Yeah, I did a lot of sport, but I was very academic.
Right.
I remember through physiotherapy, I was addicted to the work. It was not that I was trying to prove to anyone else. It was like me versus me, and I didn't want...
So you're competitive, but with yourself?
I'm so competitive with myself.
Yeah, right.
And same with the businesses. Like, every month, the growth that I want to see is not comparing to any other brand. It's literally to myself. I need to prove to myself that I'm moving in the right direction, or else what am I doing to treading water?
Yeah, right. So why do you do what you do? Like, what's the hidden motivation that lies under the surface, or perhaps is at the top of the surface that we just don't know about?
I think, and that's probably changed. I think at the start, I was caught up in this. Was
it ever about the money in the beginning?
Yeah, I think at the beginning. Yeah. Honestly, I think at the beginning, if I'm going to be completely truthful, the attractiveness of business and doing something outside of being an employee was the money and the freedom that afforded. But I think ultimately...
Did you kind of reach that stage like a lot of entrepreneurs do, where you've got all the money you need and some? You've played, you've had a few nice cars, you've had a few nice houses, had a few nice girlfriends, and you're like, oh shit,
what
hang
next?
on, this wasn't really. Did you have that moment?
Yeah, I think I've had that at multiple times. Fuck, I think I still have that now.
I had it. I fucking woke up this morning and I had it. If I'm honest, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've had guilt about. I've almost felt guilty about earning money at stages where I've kind of thought, why me?
Yeah, right.
What am I doing? Like, why me? And then I sort of just rationalized.
Was that inherently from you, or was that from outside forces reflecting upon you that perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, society's beliefs are often instilled in us, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably right. I've probably got these beliefs instilled in me, which give me a sense of guilt about having money, whether it's watching news and looking at people with less opportunity and things like that. But I think it's still good to when you sort of feel that guilt to understand that maybe there are people with less opportunity, and that where ultimately I was born into a family by luck. I didn't choose that. I was just born into a family by luck. Not that my family from a monetary point of view contributed to what I've done, but certainly the way my parents raised me and the values and the beliefs and opportunities I had as a kid to participate in sport and go to a good school, they contributed to where I am now. And I don't take that for granted, because I understand that there's people out there that haven't had that opportunity.
Yeah, right. So in terms of, you talked about parenting. You mentioned a couple of times now your dad's work ethic and now the way that you were brought up. So I guess at what point are you looking to settle down at some point, start your own family? Has it already happened? Did I miss that in the fucking pre-brief?
It hasn't happened. My girlfriend probably like it too soon, but
here we go. What's her name?
Tanya.
Tanya, you can send me flowers for what I'm about to do.
Well, I mean, we've got 2 dogs in the last 18 months, so that slowed things down a bit.
Yeah, right. Congratulations.
They've been a handful, but
it's a good preparation.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
Yeah.
So I mean, they are.
How's the preparation going?
Yeah, that's. I'm slowly.
See, once you get kids, you can't give them back.
Yeah.
That's why the puppy thing is a really good trial.
Yeah, no, the puppies are great. They definitely are a handful, but they're starting to get through their puppy stage, so that's all good. Yeah, I think ultimately we'll have kids, and I would like to raise them similar to how I was, which was to understand, good values and good beliefs and have that as a good example, but ultimately be left to actually establish a lot of those for yourself.
Yeah, right.
And, I think my parents steered me in the right direction, but they certainly weren't forceful.
Yep.
And, I think at times they sort of let go a bit to even let me fail and let me do stupid things, in my teenage years with my mates and whatnot, but to do that in order to learn.
Yeah, right. So you mentioned earlier before in the early days you were very honest about it was about the money. I'm going to assume now you've made enough money for it to be irrelevant about the money. So what makes you get out of bed now?
So now it's really turned.
Can't be the puppies.
No, the puppies, they wake me up every morning and lick in my face.
I guess that does get you out of bed. There we go.
And they're licking, and then if I don't get them open up the door, they'll go to the bathroom on the floor. So they get me up. But in terms of, I guess, a sense of purpose, it's a combination of things. The work that I'm still doing and the stuff that we're still doing with China, there are a lot of challenges involved. And, now we're dealing with another country who has their own sets of cultures and values and beliefs and political system.
Yeah.
And over the last 2 years of really getting in that, I feel like I've taken my skill set and I guess understanding of business to a whole nother level in terms of maturing on that side of things. So I like the intellectual challenge of business, and I don't think that will ever fade.
Yep.
So I think, money aside, I could be doing nothing right now. I could wake up and just go for a swim. But would you be happy? But I wouldn't be stimulating my mind with what I find very interesting, and that is, building a brand, the creative aspect of building a brand, understanding your consumer, working out, where you're going to speak to them, how you're going to speak to them, all that sort of stuff, and sitting down in the strategy sessions I'm very passionate about, and we've got some young members of our team now, and being able to guide them and see them actually starting to contribute and come up with great ideas is inspiring to myself. So I enjoy that side of things. And then, what I'm doing with Plant Proof and just being able to cut through a lot of the bull. Can I swear on this show?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
A lot of the bullshit in the fitness and health industry, around just selling crap and where people don't really care about the consumer and it's all about a quick dollar. There's so much of that now on social media and online, and I feel like a lot of people are slightly misled. They don't know what to do. And my message isn't about being vegan. It's just about healthy eating in general, and there's a spectrum, and I teach people a lot of the principles and where the science lies, and I find it rewarding to be able to do that without any agendas.
Yeah, right. So what's your main protein source, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so it's a big diverse range, but I'll have legumes, so black beans, chickpeas, lentils, fava beans, things like that, tempeh, tofu, nuts, seeds, unrefined grains. I have protein powder like a lot of people. I have pea and hemp protein powder.
Yep.
Most days I'd be getting 150 to 200 grams of protein.
Okay. How tall are you?
6'1".
How much do you weigh?
6 foot, yeah. 89, yeah.
89 kilos, wow. 200 grams of protein. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's all plant-based?
That's all plant-based.
So you must be eating a shit ton.
Well, I mean, not really. You get your shake might have 30, 40 grams in it. Then what a lot of people don't sort of can't get their head around when they are transitioning is you do need to eat more volume.
Yeah.
Because plant-based food is less calorie dense.
Yeah.
But
the benefit of that is obviously intestinal. It's far better fit. I mean, a lot higher fiber, better.
Yeah, exactly. So you get a lot of fiber, but I do a lot of like really dense smoothies. I do overnight oats with a lot of really high protein ingredients, hemp seeds, things like that. And I don't find it hard at all. You've got like your legume pastas. I'm not sure if you've seen them.
Not yet, no.
So you can do like chickpea pasta, which is 47 grams per serve of protein.
And it actually tastes all right?
It tastes amazing.
Legume pasta.
So if you...
I'm fucking sold.
They do it in chickpea, they do it in edamame, they do it in azuki, I think.
What's the brand? Is it
Eco something?
Eco something, all right.
But yeah, that's 46 grams of protein per serve, 20 odd grams of fiber, and 20 grams of carbs.
Wow.
So like you can... You do 2 serves of that, one for lunch and one for dinner with whatever else, and it's pretty easy. I think with more and more products coming onto the market, I don't need a lot of the processed, super processed vegan food.
Yep.
I understand that if someone's transitioning or doesn't really care about their health and they're more animal ethics, that's fine.
Yep.
But I do try and stick to sort of as whole food or minimally processed as possible.
Yeah, right. Okay. What's the craziest thing you've ever done? Because you seem pretty straight-laced, I've got to tell you. But I have this feeling that there's this party animal dark side that only comes out after midnight on a full moon.
Yeah, I've done my fair share of partying.
Yep.
I grew up in Melbourne. Melbourne, has nightclubs open all hours of the morning.
Not like Sydney.
Yeah, it's a bit different to Sydney, which is probably one of the reasons I moved here.
Yeah,
to get me away from that.
Yeah.
So, there was plenty of partying in Melbourne. There was plenty of full moon parties in Thailand. There was, I think the craziest thing I did was when I was 21, I took between third and fourth year uni, I had about 4 months off because of clinical placements with physio, and I went to South America and I skydived. I was hungover, signed up for skydiving, and the pilot, he was probably 15 or 16, and I actually was more scared in the plane going up than jumping out. That was probably the scariest time of my life.
See, and little did you know, he also had other parachutes in there, but they were strapped to some other loads. Okay, cool. So you really are kind of at that point in your life now where it seems to me like it's not so much philanthropic as it is passion-based. Like you've reached that point where the businesses they're fairly well under management, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we've got, large office, lots of managers, big team.
Yep. So how big's your team?
I think we've got 19 staff at the moment in our office, and then in the Chinese office they've got about 23.
Yeah, right.
So we're partnered with them. So 40 odd people.
And any other brands coming out that's worth mentioning?
We're working on a range of things, but there's different. We're looking at dental into China.
Dental.
Yeah, so we're looking at
that'll be a hot product.
The oral care space.
Yeah, right.
That's probably.
Not teeth whitening, actual oral care.
Not teeth whitening per se, more oral care. So the oral care and education up there is probably a little bit behind here.
Yeah.
And I think the access to dentists generally isn't as good as here.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that space and a bunch of other spaces.
Yeah, right. That's very cool. Well, mate, listen, I know you're building the personal brand up. So if people want to find out more about you, where can we send them?
On Instagram, plant_proof, or plantproof.com is probably the best place.
And you've also got a podcast that you've either just launched or it's out now?
I got a podcast. I'm 54 episodes in.
Well done.
So that's been
congratulations.
It's been good fun, as you know.
Yeah.
Just to have a yarn.
Yeah.
But that's just called the Plant Proof podcast, and I don't just talk about nutrition. It's around just being a bit more conscious and self-aware.
So just on that note then, do you have any conscious practices that you do on a regular basis?
I think, I meditate daily.
Yeah.
Which is...
What style of meditation?
So just like a One Giant Mind, to use the app. Have you seen the app?
I have not, no.
Yeah, so
it's guided.
There's a mantra and it's guided,
Okay.
So I do that daily, maybe sometimes again in the afternoon, depending on how the day is going.
Yep.
But I think just throughout the day, as much as I can, trying to separate myself from what's going on in my mind, taking a step back.
To be mindful.
Yeah, just to be mindful and to be able to think, sometimes your first reaction, to an email or what someone says is not always the right one. It's not always what you believe in.
Yeah.
And your mind can play tricks on you like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes just taking that extra moment to really think things through, and that's probably something I didn't do at all in my 20s.
Yeah, right. Well done, mate. That's great. And so last but not least, best piece of advice?
I would say to be as consistent as you can be in whatever it is you're doing and you're trying to work on. Because often I find people that want to work on something, they're very extreme in that they'll be like, I'm just going to do it this week and I'm going to learn it, or I'm going to do a detox or whatever. And my message is around consistency over a long time really pays off. And if I was going to add something else to that,
please,
it would be about vulnerability and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And putting yourself into a position where you are vulnerable, accepting that you're not born with all of the knowledge, and that there are plenty of people around you who can guide you and help you, but you need to allow yourself ultimately to be vulnerable in order to listen and to see these cues, to learn from them, to then be able to build them into your own practice and grow personally to grow your business as well.
Beautiful finish. Simon Hill, thank you so much. For those who want to find out more information, plant_proof. Is that a .com as well?
So plantproof.com.
Plantproof.com and Instagram plant_proof. Check out the podcast. It's out now, 54 episodes deep. Check it out. Simon Hill, thank you so much for coming in,
Thanks,
mate.
Kerwin.
Cheers,
Appreciate
mate.
it.
This episode was brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for business. There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends and drop me a review on iTunes. I would love to hear what you guys think, and also let you know that your comments help make sure that we keep producing killer content just like this. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of my movements, upcoming podcasts, events, and much more, please jump onto the website kerwinray.com and also check us out on all social media on the handle @KerwinRay. Thanks for joining us.